Welcome to this edition of News Today, a series in which we discuss and briefly analyze the important news of the day. Let's have a look at today's main headlines. The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India operationalizes provisions of the Draft Food Safety and Standards, Food Product Standards and Fruit Additives Amendment Regulations. The second India-Australia 2+2 Ministerial Dialogue held in New Delhi. The India-bound cargo ship hijacked by Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. China sets up a near-space command for hypersonic weapons force. NASA is set to launch the atmospheric wave experiment mission to the International Space Station. The International Cricket Council bans transgender players from international women's cricket. Starting with the first main news, the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India has operationalized provisions of the Draft Food Safety and Standards, Food Product Standards and Food Additives Amendment Regulations. The draft amendment was notified by the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India under the Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006. Now, the provisions of draft related to the limits of micronutrients in vitamins and mineral premix for manufacturing of fortified rice kernels or FRKs have been operationalized. This will strengthen the National Fortification Program. Let's understand more about fortification. It is the addition of key vitamins and minerals to staple foods such as rice, wheat, oil, milk and salt to improve their nutritional content. When it comes to rice, its fortification refers to adding FRK containing Food Safety and Standards Authority of India prescribed micronutrients like iron, folic acid, vitamin B12 to normal custom milled rice in the ratio of 1:100. Herein, coating, extrusion and dusting are key technologies for rice fortification. Out of this, in India, the extrusion technology is employed where milled rice is pulverized and mixed with a premix containing vitamins and minerals. Fortification is a cost-effective method for combating malnutrition. However, fortified rice could be harmful to people suffering from thalassemia and sickle cell anemia. Having understood fortification, let's have a look at the key initiatives taken by India. The distribution of fortified rice has been taken under the Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0. Also, the centrally sponsored pilot scheme on the fortification of rice and its distribution under the public distribution system has also been undertaken. Additionally, the +F logo by the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India to identify fortified foods is also a step in this regard. In another news, the second India-Australia 2+2 Ministerial Dialogue has been held in New Delhi. The meeting was co-chaired by India's Defence Minister and External Affairs Minister along with their Australian counterparts. The meeting highlighted the significance of strong India-Australia defence partnership for Indo-Pacific and called for enhancing collaboration in information exchange and defence research, among other things. Let's have a look at the areas of strategic convergence between India and Australia. Both democracies of Indo-Pacific have pluralistic societies and are market economies. They hold a shared vision for Indo-Pacific that calls for a free, open, inclusive and resilient rule-based order in the region. Herein, the Australia-India Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative Partnership helps shape the maritime cooperation in Indo-Pacific. Also, the Supply Chain Resilience Initiative by Australia, India and Japan was launched for diversification of supply chain in the region. They also have shared interest in balancing China's growing assertiveness. Both are the members of Quad along with Japan and US, and their bilateral strategic partnership was elevated to comprehensive strategic partnership in the year 2020. Also, herein the defense cooperation between the two nations needs a special mention. There are military logistics support agreement which facilitates sophisticated logistic cooperation along with the Defense Science and Technology Implementing Arrangement that facilitates interaction between the defense research organizations in the two countries. Also, the Information Fusion Center of the Indian Ocean Region Liaison Officer to enhance maritime situational awareness is also a step. There are certain joint military exercises between the two like Aussie Index, Malabar and Pitch Black. In another news, the India-bound cargo ship has been hijacked by the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. Houthis are a rebel group locked in a civil war with the Yemeni government for almost a decade. They are named after the Houthi tribe. Coming back to the news, the ship called Galaxy Leader is British owned and Japanese operated and was heading from Turkey towards Pipavav in Gujarat. The hijacking occurred approximately 150 kilometers off the coast of Yemen's port city of Hodeida, near the coast of Eritrea. Later, the Saudi-led coalition accused this act as an armed group of piracy. Having said this, let's have a look at the challenges of piracy. It can deter trade along key global shipping checkpoints and disrupt critical supply chains. Also, experts believe that there exists a strong nexus with local mafia groups, illegal trafficking, or even terrorism. Plus, the associated higher cost as ships divert around the piracy areas, requiring extra fuel and increased shipping insurance premiums. Also, it poses a significant risk to sailors, the shipping industry, and the coastal states that border the piracy-prone zones. Before we conclude this news, let's understand the importance of Red Sea. It is a narrow strip of water extending southeastwards from the Suez Canal to Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which connects the Gulf of Aden and then with the Arabian Sea. It is a crucial route for international trade and energy shipments, as around 93 to almost 100% of Arab countries' total exports pass through it. Also, approximately 10% of the seaborne cargo sails through the Red Sea, including most of the Asian trade with Europe. The Red Sea also has geostrategic importance as both the United States and China have naval bases in Djibouti. Moving on to the next news, China has set up a Near Space Command for Hypersonic Weapons Force. Near Space is a region above and adjacent to the national airspace, and it extends from 18 kilometers above sea level up to 160 kilometers above sea level. The recent establishment of the Near Space Command and the incident of a US shot down Chinese spy balloon earlier this year underscores the growing belief that space may be the next battleground. At present, Near Space region is a no man's land. In this region, air is too thin to support flight by most operational military aircrafts, and yet gravity is too strong for a satellite to sustain itself in orbit. Thus, as a given, very few aircraft fly in this region. Having understood the basics, let's look at the significance of near space. Systems in this region can operate for weeks or months as opposed to unmanned air vehicles whose missions last 24 to 40 hours. Satellites in this region are less costly than those in the geostationary orbits. The systems in near space could function as a surrogate satellite, offering advantages of shorter transmission distances, better communication, and surveillance. Also, the deployed equipment has small radar and thermal cross sections, making them relatively invulnerable to most traditional tracking and targeting methods. However, there are certain limitations as well, like controlling and maintaining the near space equipment is challenging due to the turbulent lower atmosphere. Also, the militarization of this region poses significant diplomatic challenges. Moving on to the next news, NASA is set to launch the Atmospheric Wave Experiment mission to the International Space Station. The Atmospheric Wave Experiment is a pioneering NASA experiment designed to explore the interplay between terrestrial and space weather. It will examine airglow, which are colorful bands of light in Earth's atmosphere, to determine what combination of forces drives the space weather in the upper atmosphere. It will also measure the atmospheric gravity waves at mesopause, which is an atmospheric layer that begins some 87 kilometers in altitude. The atmospheric gravity waves form as buoyancy lifts air upwards and the gravity brings it back down. The upward movement encourages cloud formation, while the downward movement promotes clear skies. These waves result from various processes like airflow over mountains, convection, and frontal systems. They serve to connect different parts of the atmosphere, such as surface storm, which causes changes in the ionosphere. A better understanding of how gravity waves in the upper atmosphere interacts with the jet stream, polar vortex, and other phenomena could be key to improved weather predictions and climate models. Before we conclude this news, let's understand some basics about space weather. It describes the variations in space environment between the Sun and the Earth. Herein, Sun is the primary source of space weather with the greatest disturbances usually caused by solar flares and subsequent geomagnetic storms. The space weather can affect power grids, radio or satellite-based communications, operations of navigations, and the Global Positioning System or the GPS. In another news, the International Cricket Council bans transgender players from international women's cricket. The ICC has barred cricketers who have experienced male puberty from International Women's Games, regardless of surgery or gender reassignment treatment. This treatment, which is also called sex reassignment surgery, is performed to transition individuals with gender dysphoria to their desired gender. The ICC's new policy is based on the principles of protection of the integrity of the women's game, safety, fairness, and inclusion. Let's look at the debate around allowing transgenders in sports in more details. It centers around the balance of inclusion, sporting fairness, and safety in women's sport. Also, the physiological differences established during puberty can create significant performance advantages. Having said this, the rules governing transgender persons in sports vary by organizations. For instance, as per the World Athletics, differences in sex development or DSD athletes must keep their testosterone below 2.5 nanomoles per liter for 24 months to participate in the female category across events. DSD is a condition when an individual's physical sex traits don't match typical male or female development. The testosterone boosts athletic performance by increasing muscle mass, strength, and hemoglobin levels. When it comes to world's governing bodies for cycling, swimming, and world rugby, they have barred the trans women from competing in women's event. Also, the International Olympic Committee has been placing responsibility on individual federations to determine eligibility criteria in their sport for transgender people. The place in news for today is Suriname. Recently, an illegal gold mine collapsed in Suriname. Suriname, with its capital Paramaribo, is located on the northern coast of South America and is not landlocked. Its bordering nations are French Guiana in the east, Brazil in south, and Guyana in the west. When it comes to the geographical features, it is majorly a tropical rainforest. Its major rivers are Merovine, Quarantine, Copenhagen, Suriname. Its highest point is Juliana Top, and it is one of the top producers of bauxites in the world. As we conclude today's main news, let's go through some quick updates. The Atal Innovation Mission and Australia's National Science Agency has launched Rapid Innovation and Startup Expansion Accelerator Program. It will support Australian and Indian circular economy startups and small to mid-sized enterprises. The Lancet Countdown on Health and Climate Change Report 2023 has highlighted that the global potential loss of income from the reduction in labor capacity due to extreme heat was $863 billion in 2022. Gujarat has declared ghole species as the state fish at the Global Fisheries Conference 2023. The ghole fish is widely distributed in the Indo-Pacific from Persian Gulf to the Pacific Ocean. A new study has revealed that two species of mosquito fish, Gambusia affinis and Gambusia holbrooki, have invaded various ecosystems across India. Study shows the presence of hemoglobin in the epidermis. It is the outermost layer of the skin, forming a protective barrier against the external environment. Recently, a report claimed that the Laglands program can be likened to building bridges. The program attempts to find connections between number theory and representation theory. The European Space Agency's JUICE probe will use double gravity assist for the first time from Earth and Moon to propel itself towards Jupiter. Double gravity assist is a technique by which a spacecraft, with the help of gravitational field of two celestial bodies, gets a speed boost. The gamma ray burst in a faraway galaxy disturbed Earth's ionosphere. Gamma ray bursts are short-lived bursts of gamma ray light, which are most energetic form of light. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to the test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answer to today's quiz and to download the PDF of News Today, Make sure to check out the links in the description below.